Hey guys, SGT here with another important update from somebody we haven't spoken to in far too long. His name's Bix Weir. He's been a friend for a long time, and we gladly welcome him back. Bix, how are you?
I'm doing well, Sean. How are you?
Well, I'm good. Thanks, man. It's been too long since we had you on, and that's my fault because I wanted Ron Paul to be our president, man, and I really did want that to be true. That was your prediction. It didn't happen, and it took me a little bit of time to get over it because, to be honest with you, man, I was just heartbroken.
We were all heartbroken, and it's amazing to me. It's amazing how far he got. I mean, that was the plan to try to get him in, and we were so close. I mean, it came down to the Republican convention, really, and that's where the bad guys shut the door on him. So it's depressing and it's sad, but we gave it our best shot and we came close.
Yeah, and now that he is he's out there, he's not in Congress anymore. He's got a lot of free time. He seems to be at least as active as he was as a congressman. I see him doing interviews constantly every single day. Plus now he's got a podcast going. So at least on behalf of liberty, on behalf of truth, he's still being that statesman that we need so much.
Yeah, and he's not that far away. If we do have that banking collapse, which obviously we're closer and closer to, he'll be there to talk to the people and express his ideas once again.
Now let me ask you here, with these banks in Cyprus now finally opening again, I want to just read to you a couple of quotes which are really I think heartbreaking as it relates to the folks in Cyprus. Here's a woman who says, and I quote, "I've been working for 60 years. I am 80 years old. I can't work again for my living. They've cut the lot. Our money, our social insurance, they've cut them. How are we going to live?" These folks are really a shining example for the rest of us of what can happen when a central bank or a group of banking oligarchs turns against you and just decides to steal your money. You have little recourse.
Truthfully, this is a sign of things to come in the very near future for everyone on the planet. And it will be the little guys like the reader that you just talked about. It's going to take them to stand up and say, and I think they will, and say no more of this ridiculous system that we live in, where a handful of elite control the fate of our currency, the fate of our jobs, the fate of our survival. It's gotten to be ridiculous, and it's time for that global crash and the global restart, which I think is coming. It's been coming for a while, and we're in the middle of it. We're not at the end yet.
Why do you think it's taken so long, Bix? You had a lot of eggs in your basket with the Road to Ruta theory, saying that the collapse was coming, and ultimately it would be the collapse that would help propel Ron Paul into the presidency. We didn't get that. This whole thing is being strung along, I think, a lot longer than any of us ever suspected it would be or could be, and yet here we do see the EU on sort of another edge of another precipice where the whole house of cards could come tumbling down. Why do you think it's taking so long? I mean, what's your prognosis for the near future? Max Kaiser is saying total collapse here in April. What do you think?
It's taken a while because of, look what happened in 2008. That was the first attempt, well, maybe not the first, but a big attempt to take the system down. And it really did come down to Hank Paulson standing in front of Congress with a gun saying, we need $800 billion to keep this game going. And at that point in time, the people weren't smart enough. We weren't ready to stand up and say, hey, this is baloney. We're not going to fall for it. This time we are ready. The next time there's a banking crash, and I've been saying this for a while, in 2008, not enough people knew about it. Today, everybody knows. You go around talking about these banker derivatives and the banker situation in Cyprus, where they're holding up their hands with a big no in ink. That's going to go around the country. And the next time someone like Hank Paulson walks in front of Congress and says, hey, we need another $800 billion or $800 trillion to bail out the banks because it's best for the country, I think everybody now is ready to stand up and say no more of this.
Don't you think it's interesting that so many of us have woken up now worldwide? I mean, because I was listening to a conversation with James Corbett of the Corbett Report just the other day, and he was talking about how his awakening really hinged around the 9/11 issue, and he was fully on board with the official story right through about 2005. Late 2005, early 2006, he finally started to poke around, and the more he poked around, the more holes in the story he found, which of course was alarming. Same thing happened to me, because once you realize that, you really want to puke your guts out, because you have your entire paradigm shifted when you find out you can no longer believe our government, our officials, our quote-unquote leaders, our leadership, our representatives, when you find out that they've been lying to us on a level as grand as 9/11, it is absolutely disturbing. It'll rock you to your core. Now, James Corbett went on to say, after that, he found out about central banking and about this debt-based monetary system, and that's when it all made sense. And I think that awakening is something I've gone through, he went through, you went through, my friend Chris Duane went through it, Brother John F., Stefan Molyneux. So many people have gone through that it really is a different paradigm now, isn't it? The genie cannot be put back in the bottle by these criminal oligarchs.
I agree 100%. And all I have to say is thank God for the Internet. The Internet has made information available to everybody. And I know there's a lot of crap on the Internet, and I know there's a lot of disinformation and wrong information, but there's also a lot of truth that can't be filtered out. And people are going on the Internet for their news these days, which is great to hear. All the big mainstream media outlets are getting destroyed by the Internet, which is it's about time. And without it, we would still be in that, airy-fairy world where they want us to be sheeple without any minds of our own and just following along. The Internet has absolutely cracked the back of the bad guys, and now people are, we're starting to learn. We're getting smarter and we're waking up.
Well, yeah, thank God for the Internet. If it weren't for the Internet, I'd have never met you, Bix. I'd have never met Chris Duane. I wouldn't know about Stefan Molyneux's work. I wouldn't know about James Corbett's work. I probably wouldn't know about Paul Craig Roberts' work. I wouldn't know about Max Kaiser's work, Alex Jones' work. All of these people know the truth about two things, which defines us as the truth tellers we are trying to be, which is, number one, 9/11 was a false flag operation of some sort, and the powers that be in the governments of the world love to use false flags for their own means, right? That's number one. Number two, the central banking system of this planet is corrupt to the core. And, all of us know that, and that's a beautiful thing, because as the powers that be try to usher in their new world order, their one world government, as Henry Kissinger said, it was either from Rockefeller or Kissinger, one of them said, countless people will hate the New World Order and will die protesting against it. Now, what I find really interesting about that quote is that when it was said, more than a decade ago, I was asleep, you were asleep, so many others that I've just mentioned were asleep, but none of us are asleep now. So when he talks about, countless will die protesting against it, in his mind that might have been a far, far smaller amount than the people that will protest it now. Because I'm telling you what, man, you and I both know, take a look at the Second Amendment issue, take a look at all these issues that are now defining what an American patriot is. You've got millions, tens of millions of people in this country alone that are now awake or in the process of waking up. So when we rebel against this New World Order, I think those folks are going to have a much, much bigger fight on their hands than they ever imagined.
He is one of the leaders of the bad guys, and the good guys are taking him down, as well as the rest of them. As far as the Internet, a really interesting thing to think about, too, is without the Internet, I guarantee you that gold will still be hovering around $250 and silver would still be at $5. It was the Internet that sparked the move in precious metals because information was able to go out to people. Bill Murphy and Chris Powell of GATA really kicked it off in the late 90s with the Internet fueling that sense of I want to take my country back, and gold and silver are at the leading edge of this revolution. And I can't stress to your listeners enough the need to get physical gold and silver in your own possession right now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but right now.
Well, Bix, I want to talk to you about something else. I want your opinion on what we see happening with Bitcoin because, part of me is really happy that Bitcoin is out there. I think it's great to have a competing currency. A cryptocurrency, I think, is what they refer to it as being. It's something that cannot be controlled by the bankers because if it could be controlled by the bankers, they would be in there probably right now manipulating it lower. At least that's what I've heard. They can't get into Mt. Gox. They can't control Bitcoin, right? There's only so many of them. So it's great that people can trust this thing as, I guess, a form of money. I'm not a fan because there's no intrinsic value, but I'm a fan of the concept. But here's my point. I feel like it is really salt in the wound to us physical stackers who know, understand, recognize, and appreciate real money, physical silver and gold. It's salt in the wound to watch Bitcoin fast approaching $100 now, when the move from 20 to 100, which we've seen in Bitcoin in a couple of months, is the exact same move we should have been seeing in silver. And it's just so disappointing because I think you and I both know as long as this paradigm exists and the oligarch banksters, the criminals, are in charge, silver's trapped. Gold's trapped.
I know what you're thinking. The reality with Bitcoin, it's a transition type of situation, a transition currency from paper to electronics, electronics within the central banking system, and then electronics outside the central banking system. All those dollars that are going into Bitcoin now will flow into silver just as fast when the manipulation ends. So if you have a choice between a freely traded Bitcoin virtual currency or silver in your possession, as soon as this banking crash happens, everybody will question electronic assets, and that includes Bitcoin. And I'm not convinced that Bitcoin can't be manipulated. Bankers can go in and buy it or sell it just like everybody else. But in that realm, all that money that's going into Bitcoin now is going to come right back into silver when it's freely traded. So it's a transition, kind of a scenario going on right now. It's kind of fun to watch. I do think the bankers hate it, but in the end, it's still just a virtual form of money, which is, in my book, the worst form of money you could possibly have.
Yeah, and I just want to say for everybody who's listened before, they know my stance on this. I think they know yours, Bix, which is just keep stacking on a regular basis. Dollar cost averaging strategy is what I've always recommended. There is one particular bold-faced liar out on YouTube suggesting that, A, I don't have a full-time job, which I do, always have, and a full-time career. And he suggests that I've told people to use credit cards, or other forms of debt with which to acquire silver, which I've never, ever done, Bix, and I don't think you've done that either. That's not what you'd recommend, is it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we don't know how long this is going to go on, and there's a lot of people out there trying to, tear us down. And when you try to speak truth and freedom, you don't know who's the other end trying to knock you down. But I always say, there's a good side and a bad side to this. The bad side wants things to stay the same, and the good side is ready for a change.
Bix, where do you stand right now on physical precious metals at these levels? I mean, we've seen silver sit here below 30 forever. Would you advise the guy who's sitting on, $50,000 that he's pulled out of an IRA? Would you advise him to go in heavy now at, 28, 29, or do you think they're going to take it all the way back down to 25 or even 20?
You should be fully invested now in physical. I mean, there is no other way going forward. Can they knock it down? In a flash crash scenario, remember, nobody is pricing physical silver. Everybody's pricing physical or non-physical silver, the silver derivatives on the COMEX and the LBMA. That is what is being priced. So if you see a slam down to $25 or below $25, you're not going to be able to go out and buy physical silver for that. It's just a sideshow. That's why I tell everybody to keep your metal out of their hands. Don't keep it in a safe deposit box, not in an ETF. Bring it home, sit on it, and wait. And, don't wait and do nothing. Wait and fight the fights on the Internet. Do everything you can. Write your congressman that you want to see a freely traded market. But it is a situation where if we do have a banking collapse, the prices can go anywhere because it's still under the control of these exchanges. The CME is a complete joke. The CFTC is obviously not doing anything yet. I do think at the end of the day they will. But until we get to that point, what's to stop J.P. Morgan from hitting in their computer sell 50 billion ounces of silver on the COMEX and driving the price to zero and then shutting down the market completely, just shutting down the CMA? It can be done. So as long as they can do that, as long as they can play their derivative games and their electronic manipulation games, you got to get your physical metal and you got to stay out of their way.
Well, good point. And, we've seen it time and time again. I know that Miles Franklin, I saw a piece from David Schechtman earlier in the week saying that they've got no junk silver available, not enough to promote anyway. So I think supplies...
I bought their last few bags, so sorry about that.
Is that right? That's hilarious. Well done. I need to get myself some of those Mercury dimes. I think those are fantastic, and I don't have any. I've got mostly 1 ounces. I'm sort of a 1 ounce and half ounce coin guy. I've always liked the coins personally.
I do too, and my advice to everybody is to if you have your choice of what to buy, get the pre-1965 coins if you can get them. Get the Silver Eagles. They are both currency of the United States. It says $1 on them or 25 cents, and they're minted by the Mint and not the Federal Reserve. They aren't Federal Reserve notes. They're minted by the U.S. Mint, so they are obligations of the U.S. government. But the best thing about them is they're small denominations. They're hard to counterfeit, and it's just the best way to play this game going forward. Physical, small denominations in your hand.
Well, Bix, man, I do appreciate your time, and I'm sorry you didn't get it right about Ron Paul becoming president. I was rooting for you. I really wanted that to fall into place, and it's not as though we need a leader. People always go on this, it's a leaderless resistance. We all need to find the answer in ourselves, and that's all fine and great, and I'm on board with the idea of the personal awakening. But at the end of the day, every good, healthy family ought to have a good, healthy father. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'd rather have a good, healthy father, a good leader, a good mentor, a good role model in a family than somebody who's abusive or not there at all for his family. And I think Ron Paul would have been just a really terrific mentor and leader for our country.
Obviously, I agree. I've been fighting that fight for a long time, and I'm going to say it again. If we have a banking crash, you're going to see Ron Paul rise from the ashes, the phoenix that he is, and say, hey, I gave you the answer a long time ago. You didn't listen. Are you ready to listen now?
All right. Well, Bix, tell people how they can find your work. You still put out great alerts, several times a week.
roadtoruta.com, and working on over 1,100 articles now on the site, which is crazy. And things are getting exciting once again after a 4-year lull. So everybody should stay awake and check out what's going on.
All right. Well, Bix Weir of roadtoruta.com, thanks again for your time. It's been far too long since we've talked, so we'll have to make sure we do this more regularly again. And so thanks. And guys, thanks for listening. Bix and I both appreciate it. Check out Bix's work at roadtoruta.com, and you can find me over at sgtreport.com and thelibertymill.com. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.